Hey, welcome back to the Old Goat Garage. I'm assuming somebody came back. Maybe this is the first time you've seen the Old Goat. I don't know. Made a couple other videos I posted, yesterday and today. New thing for me, and I'm terribly technologically challenged. So if you're tech savvy, you're gonna have plenty of material to work with here, and you can fix me in the comments maybe. I've got a couple of IT gurus that have helped me a little bit, and I'm sure they'll help me refine things as time goes on. But one of them lives in Tennessee, one of them lives here in the grand state of Oklahoma, where I live. One of them lives in a town about 15 miles away. The one that lives closest is actually in East Asia at the moment, surveying the possibility of moving his family there. So, anyway, I have a question for you. And the question is this, and the answer to this question has dramatic impact on what your life is going to look like long term. In the short term, it may make no difference at all, or at least very little discernible difference. But in the long term, it may be the biggest part of the enchilada. So here's my question. What do you do with impossible odds? Think about that a moment. If somebody had asked me that when I was a kid, I would say, I don't know. I had no clue. But looking back, I realized that something, and I think that something is certainly bigger than myself, but something, at least in some of the important areas of life, compelled me and impelled me to keep going even when I faced impossible odds. Now, it's not always a good thing. I went into business for myself when I was about 21, 22 years old, and failed. And then I went to work for a company, great company, and from there I went into an area of professional work, which for the moment shall remain unspecified. And pretty much I'm a blue collar guy. And eventually I found myself in a position where I had to go back to blue collar work. And when I did that, I went back into pretty much the same line of work that I had failed at before. And I had the thought more than once, what am I doing the same thing again? One of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for, expecting a different outcome. Well, incredibly, the second time I did have a different outcome. And I think a lot of the reasons that I did, not all the reasons, but two of the reasons. One was, by then, the hardships in life. Listen to this now, because this is worth the price of admission. The hardships in life had taught me not to quit too soon. The hardships in life had taught me that failure needn't be, does not have to be, shouldn't be permanent. In fact, failure sometimes is the foundation for future success. It's some of the most expensive education you can get. The tuition's pretty high sometimes for failure. But failure sets you up for success sometimes. The other thing that I think was kind of key to me making it the second time around was that I just had been in situations that were no-win situations, and yet somehow or another I learned how to not crawl up in a corner and wad up in the fetal position and suck my thumb. There are probably times when that would have been a good strategy. Just block out the world, la 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 la, and deny reality. But again, that dovetails with the hard times thing. Impossible odds. So I've had the opportunity over the years to kind of mentor young people who are kind of standing at square one in life, square one in adulthood. Sometimes they're still teenagers, and try to help them get a compass heading, get a sense of where they're headed in life. I think a good place for you to start, if you hope you're wishing for, and those aren't exactly the same thing. Hope means you have some assurance. In some contexts, hope really means an assured expectation, almost a certainty. Wishing is kind of the idea that, well, here's kind of what I like, but I don't know how I'm going to get there, and I'm not going to invest too much of my heart, soul, emotions, time, money, effort, brain power, trust in moving in that direction because I don't want to be disappointed. I think it's not a bad idea to be pretty much all in anything that's worthwhile, at least on the front end of the deal. Go after it with intensity. I know that sounds like, cliche babble. But the thing you need to know about cliches is that usually there's a grain of truth behind the cliche that the cliche is founded on. I can't tell you that being willing to face impossible odds will guarantee you success, but I can guarantee you that if you're immediately stopped by what appears to be impossible odds, you won't succeed. You won't obtain your goals. You won't obtain your wishes. Are there exceptions? Yeah, well, everybody knows there's an exception to almost every rule. Almost every rule, not every rule. Don't bank on the exception. Bank on the things that have worked for hundreds and thousands of years. And one of the most basic things is just the willingness to not give up because you encounter adversity, opposition, difficulties. One of the tricks to success in the business world is acquiring an education. And by that I mean acquiring a skill set that's unique to you. And the reality is everybody has a different skill set, a different education. But not everybody acquires a skill set, an education that sets them apart in a way that promotes them, springboards them forward. I told my kids, particularly to my two bio kids, when they hit about 13, 14 years old, got into junior high, and they were both pretty sharp cookies. I said, you're at the place where if you get an education, it won't be because you pass all the tests and your report cards look good. If you get an education, it's because you have a hunger for learning, a thirst for learning, a thirst for knowledge, a thirst, a drive for understanding. You need that if you want success in life. If you don't have it, you're probably going to at best live paycheck to paycheck. And if you follow the crowd right now, there's a lot of people who aren't even trying because they say, what's the use? You can't win. You can't own a home. You can't make ends meet. Yes, you can. It's not easy. And there are a lot more years that are lean probably for a lot of people than there are fat years. You've seen the little video I shot about our backyard. You know that we're not living fat by American standards, but we are successful. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we got enough. You know what? If you have contentment, you're already a success. Whether you have a lot or a little. Because the richest people in the world, sometimes the reason that they're some of the richest people in the world is because they're never satisfied. They're never content. Now, does that mean that they're a bad person? No, sometimes they're not content because they're driven to gain more so they can do more for others. But that would be an unusual case, I think. But if you're willing to do difficult things, do the jobs that other people are unwilling to do, and do them to the best of your ability. Keep going when everything inside of you says, man, I'm tapped out. I'm going to take a break, take a breather, but be eager to get back at it. Be eager to push forward. Even if you can't immediately push to the finish line, be eager to push forward. That trait is so unusual in humankind. Always has been, but it seems like as society deteriorates and the family deteriorates and our moral and ethical framework deteriorates, that the person who just keeps pushing, keeps going, is more and more of a rare breed. They stand out in the crowd. Keep learning. Keep hoping. Don't be disappointed when everything takes longer than you planned for it to take. My goal was just to survive for a lot of years. And we're now at a place where I still work some. I still work some for money, but the reality is if I wanted to, if I really was disposed to, I could quit working entirely. But I got friends and family, and I like helping them out. And the quality of those relationships means that they generally want to pay me for helping them out. I enjoy the times where I get the privilege of helping somebody out and it doesn't cost them a dime, and from my perspective, it never costs me a dime either. Because even if there are materials to be bought, hey, well, you can guess who provides the money for those materials. Anyway, back to the core question here. Square one. If you're standing at square one, what is the first step? The first step is to look in the mirror and confront your own fears, your own character limitations, your own resilience. That's a big word. Are you resilient? What do you do when you get knocked down? It's not wrong to grieve being knocked down. Every loss you and I experience, we grieve. That means we measure the impact, the weight, the power, the destructive force of the loss. But grieving, healthy, good grieving, always ultimately results in acceptance. You may have heard of the 5 stages of grieving. I won't go into them now, but the last one is acceptance. But really, in a way, acceptance isn't the last stage. Because once you've accepted the loss and you've learned that you can live with that loss, you're now equipped to stand up and do life with a strength, with an exercised muscularity of soul and heart and character that you didn't have before. You've learned what you can survive. And probably you've learned that some of the things that you thought would kill you just made you stronger. Again, a little cliche, but again, there's something in the heart of that cliche. So, I'm going to close this out here. I went too long already, which is kind of what I do. Square one. What do you do when you face difficulty, particularly when you face impossible odds? If you're going to be a success in life, there's going to come a time, and probably several times, when you face impossibilities. Are you willing to pay the price, win, lose, or draw, to keep pushing even in the face of impossible odds? I wish you well.